What's up, guys? I made another mistake. Once again, one of the 3 exotics that came out this season, I didn't really give due time to. And now I realized it's not only probably the best Warlock exotic in the game, it's definitely my new go-to build for in-game content, and it's just incredibly strong. And in this video, we'll be going over the best specialist builds in the game, so looking at the class ability stat, and making the best build for each character. And there are some pretty creative and wild ones in this video. So starting off looking at the class stat, like the previous stats we looked at, from 0 to 100, it's going to decrease the cooldown of your class ability, and then increase the class ability energy gained from every perk in the game. And at 0, this is going to be 120 with Phoenix Dive and 0%, which will scale perks like Strategist, and with 0 class, we get like barely half of our class ability back with all 14 silent kills. And then if we swap over to 100 class stat, which apparently it only increases every 10, like the old system, which is a bug that they are aware of. And with 100, the class ability now takes 27 seconds, so once again like 4 times faster. And the class ability energy is the same as the previous stats at 190% increased energy return from all sources. And then from 100 to 200, when you use your class ability, you will gain an overshield. And at 200, you'll have a full overshield, and at, let's say, 50, it's going to be roughly half. So that's pretty cool, and can help proc things like Shield Crush this season, to always have the overshield for the increased melee recharge and damage. So not too bad at all. And now let's look at the best builds for specialists and class abilities on each character. So starting off with Warlock, this build is absolutely wild. It revolves around the new exotic, the Ehroar. And I made a mistake. I should have been using this a lot sooner. I think this will actually get me off Starfire. It is that good. And we look at this, what it says is Hellion projectiles deal increased damage the further they travel, eventually fracturing into scorching shrapnel. And as you see, as you back up, it will increase the damage by a little bit. Not by a lot, but then at some point they will also kind of explode into multiple projectiles, which won't necessarily increase the damage to a single target. It will a little bit, but it's mostly about just this great AoE ad clear and just spreading Scorch and igniting things all over the place. And for this build, we're going to go the route of Solar. You could try Prismatic, but I think Solar is just way better. First, we obviously have Hellion for our first aspect to proc Hellion. Pretty straightforward, so we can actually use the exotic. And the second one is going to be Touch of Flame for our Healing Grenade. This will make it so our Healing Grenade will give us Restoration ×2. And then we have whatever melee we want, along with Burst Glide and Phoenix Dive just for the faster cooldown. And we're going to have Ember of Empyrean to extend and refresh the duration of Restoration and Radiant. We're going to get Radiant from the artifact with Fever and Chill. And then, like usual, we have Ashes to apply more stacks of Scorch. Then we have Singeing. When you Scorch targets, we'll get a chunk of class ability energy. And as you saw with 100 class ability, our cooldown is already 27 seconds, and Hellion lasts for 20. So it's already practically an infinite loop, and this will just guarantee that you have it ready when you need to. And you might be able to spam it a little more often. Phoenix Dive is still Cure, so it's still handy to have more Phoenix Dives, even though you will always have Hellion procced. It's just another way to heal. But by far the most important fragment is going to be Ember of Char, where your Solar Ignition spreads Scorch to affected targets. And the best way to explain why this fragment is so good is that this build will just be applying Scorch to everything, and once a single thing ignites, it will then spread more Scorch to everything surrounding. And it will just be this chain reaction of ignitions that will just spread forever as long as there's things nearby. So it turns this entire build into practically a Sunshot that is amped up to like 12, and everything will just chain explode. And so building further into all this chain scorching effects, we have a Solar Weapon with Burning Ambition. And you can do this with the new Solar AR, you can do this with the Solstice SMG. Both work really well, and both are overload this season. And with both, you can pair it with Hill Clip or Demo as just another source of healing, or helping get your Healing Grenade back if you drop the Restoration combo. And so now with this, if we just look at the DPS of just the Hellion with the exotic, it's pretty good. Like, this is a free like 400 or 500 DPS that can be used with any DPS combo. I would make the case that this is going to be higher DPS than even Starfire for like boss fights, right? Just passively using this seems pretty good, and the fact that it has an infinite loop with the fragments, it might be like a pretty low-key great option for DPS. But then when we add in a weapon with Burning Ambition, they'll just be igniting so much faster, and you'll just be doing way more damage just with this primary weapon. So not a special, not a heavy. I'm doing like 900 DPS. That's not bad at all. And for this requiring no setup at all, just simply using your class ability, shooting a primary, that is pretty good. And that's the way I like to go for very hard content. It's so strong. I think better than even Starfire. And then for easier content, you could run Incandescent just to get that faster pace buildup of Scorch. And just trust me, try this build out. And with the Ember of Char fragment, once you just get one thing to ignite, everything's just gone. It's actually mind-blowing that sometimes you just don't even understand what's happening. You just simply like shoot one thing, next thing you know, they're all dead. And you're just kind of like, what even happened? And then our other weapons, I have a Dragon's Breath, works perfectly with this build, the way Ignitions build up the fuel of the shot and then refill it from reserves. That way you can just pull it out, shoot it. Then in like a second or two, once you call 5 Ignitions, be ready to shoot off your next one. And yeah, it's just a great combo overall and pretty good for damage also. And the Dragon's Breath is unstoppable, the Ehroar SMG is Overload, and then we can finish off with the Mint Retrograde, which is going to be anti-barrier this season. And you just pull this out if you do need to break a barrier shield, but you'll find that this combo actually staggers almost everything in the game. And so most time barriers can't even put up their shield when you use this. So yeah, it's pretty good. And then the final thing you could use is the Trials LMG for Incandescent and Burning Ambition, and obviously this is just incredible for this build if you have it, but definitely not necessary. I think just the Ehroar SMG are good enough, and Dragon's Breath is very handy for just everything. And then look at our mods, it's pretty straightforward. This build itself is pretty infinite just because the fact that you have Hellion for 20 seconds, and Singeing will make it so you have it every 20 seconds very easily. And so you can do really whatever you want, and for this build I like to spam Dragon's Breath or the LMG, and so I just go the route of ammo gen, so like double heavy finder plus a solar siphon, a solar reloader just to help out with our primaries, and then I usually rock a grenade font because with this build I'm using all specialist armor with super as the third, so I have very high class weapons and super. And then I want a little bit of extra grenade just to make sure I have my healing grenade when I need it. So grenade font is pretty good. Then impact induction, just to help build back up our grenade when we use our melee. Then I have a health font and 2 solar ammo generations, or you could rock a resist instead of one of them. But with restoration times 2 at all times, I think you'll be fine for most things. And then I'm rocking 2 solar weapon surges along with a solar scavenger just to top up our ammo with our Dragon's Breath or LMG, and that way we can kind of use it at all times. And then on our bond I have Reaper, Distribution, and a Powerful Attraction to suck up all those orbs. And for this build I like to spec into as much weapons as possible, so I'm using all specialists but with a weapon mod to add 50 of that stat. Then from the artifact it's all the normal stuff, so Fever and Chill, Refreshed Threads, Elemental Coalescence, Elemental Daze, Auto-Rise Darkness in case you're playing with a team that are using all the darkness debuffs, and then Shield Crush with Elemental Overdrive or Radiant Shrapnel. And I think Shrapnel is a little bit better just in our way to apply those attacks of Scorch, because this build's all about just getting one thing to ignite, then everything just chain igniting and dying. And yeah, definitely give this build a try if you haven't. I'll link it down below. I think it's honestly better than Starfire. I've been playing Starfire practically the entire DLC for everything in the game. And when I was playing with this build, I can kind of foresee that in every situation, I think this would be better. It's even more passive than Starfire, which Starfire is already an incredibly passive build. And for like the hardest of hardest content, like the GM Conquest, I think this will be probably the best build in the game, where it requires absolutely no kill activation at all. Just simply using your class ability is an infinite loop. And pairing that with just a Burning Ambition weapon will cause not only constant ignitions, but chain ignitions. And even in the hardest content, it will just continue to chug along and just do really well. And then on Hunter, another build I'm incredibly excited to show off. This one's revolve around Mask of Bacchus, which has got a huge update this DLC. And what this does is while you have a stasis super equipped, your dodge becomes a longer range, faster moving shift that partially cloaks you during use. After shifting your stasis and arc weapons plus Order Wolves, doesn't say that, but trust me, it works. Gain a stacking damage bonus for a short time. Final blows while this bonus is active refund class ability energy. So for this, I like to use the comp hand cannon with Headstone and Firefly. If you don't have this, any good stasis primary will work. And then we're going to be using Lord of Wolves. And so how this works is every time you use your dodge, you will gain 1 stack of light shift. And this will be roughly like 11%, 22%, and 33% increase to your stasis and arc weapon damage along with Lord of Wolves. And this will stack with other buffs in the game. So for example, Radiant or even weapon surges. So on the champion without anything going on, we hit 109. Then we get light shift all the way up to ×3 along with 3x weapon surge and Radiant. And then we can also throw in a debuff if we wanted to, or the 15% void debuff, and that takes the damage up to 243, over 2x damage. And we can give that full damage increase to our hand cannon or our Lord of Wolves if we want to rock 3 stasis weapon surges or 3 solar. I usually find a split of like 2 solar, 1 stasis, and kind of help both out a little bit. And then as you saw, we were both applying Radiant and Weaken with our Snare Bomb because we're using Dawn. And to get that back very quickly, we're using Gamber's Dodge, and we have 70 melee stat. So every time we use our dodge, we can throw that melee and apply both Radiant and Weaken. And when you have Light Shift active, it takes just over 1 full kill to get your dodge back. So you can just use your dodge with this hand cannon, usually just shoot one thing, and it will chain explode one other thing with Headstone and Firefly. And then you can have your dodge back, and you just do it over and over again. Go up to a high-level target, pull out the Lord of Wolves, have like a 100% increase on that weapon's damage, and just delete anything that comes in front of you. If we look at the DPS of Lord of Wolves in this combo, it is very, very high. It usually tops out around 3,000, which is very high for a single weapon. And so not only do we have this insane damage combo going on with the Mask of Bacchus, but we also have infinite dodges, and on Prismatic, that means we can have like infinite uptime on some of these really cool aspects. And the most important one's gonna be Threaded Spectre or the Clone. And with the fact that we can dodge after every 2 kills with this build, we're gonna have these all over the place, which will not only distract everything and make it so we just never get shot at. Whenever they do explode, they'll release the Threadlings. It's gonna be great AoE actor. And this combined with the Snare Bomb to disorient enemies, you just will simply never be shot in this build. And then our second aspect, you can use kind of whatever. You can use Winter Shroud. We're going to be spamming our dodge, so this will slow everything nearby, which will be great for Overload champions and kind of build into our comp hand cannon with the whole chain freezing and shattering. But you could use wherever you want. Unfortunately, Ascension does not work with this dodge, so you could go the route of Stylish to constantly go Invis, or even Gunpowder Gamble. And then looking at our fragments, we have Hope to get our class ability back a little bit quicker. Then we have Dawn, as mentioned before, Ruin to help increase all of the shattering damage. And we have Balance to get our melee and grenade back. And then finally Protection for increased DR. Overall, the fragments aren't too important outside of Dawn. And overall, the whole loop is you just use your hand cannon and dodge constantly to put down all the clones, free stuff, shatter it, Firefly, all that good stuff. And then when you get up to a high target, you have Lord of Wolves, and they will just be simply deleted. And looking at our mods, we have a lot of the normal stuff. I'm using double melee font to get up to 70 melee to make sure I get my Snare Bomb back every time I dodge. And then we have 3x weapon surges, either solar or stasis or a mix. Then Reaper, powerful attraction, and distribution on the class item. And our artifact mods are going to be the same as the comp hand cannon video if you watch that. So basically all of the stasis ones. And the most important two are going to be Frigid Glare and Fever and Chill. Fever and Chill to get stacks of Frost Armor with our hand cannon. And then Frigid Glare, when we have those stacks, all of our Precision Final Blows will cause the Freezing Burst. And that combined with Headstone and Firefly have this weird interaction where there's like 2 Shatterings, Firefly, and just everything takes way more damage than you would think. Anyways, definitely give this build a try. It is just incredibly strong. And finally, quickly going over the Titan build. Mostly because I wasn't incredibly happy where this ended up. I think it's so close to being great, but it's just not quite there. And maybe there's a different version of this build where it does work really well, but it's going to revolve around the exotic class item. And the most important thing to use is the Spirit of the Horn to release the waves of solar energy when you use your class ability. And for this, obviously, we have to be playing on Prismatic, and on Prismatic we have Dringer's Lash to make it so we do the suspending burst when we use our Barricade. And so the whole idea is use Barricade and it will suspend everything and then also do the solar energy and kind of be like a 2-in-1 all-purpose Barricade. And the other perk you can use on the Titan Mark is 1, Spirit of Inmost Light, just to have higher uptime on your Barricade and your other abilities. But you could also use Abiant to buff up Dringer's Lash and make it go further and track. And I will link this build down below, but the reason I'm not too over the moon about it is because I think the Prismatic kit for all the fragments and your second aspect really aren't great for this build. There's really nothing helping it out at all. I'd rather play on Solar or Strand to spam my Barricade, but on Strand, you obviously can't use Kefri's Horn because you need a Solar Super. You obviously can't use the exotic Mark because you're not on Prismatic, so at that point you're just using Dringer's Lash, and it's fine, right? You can use it quite often, but at that point it's just suspending and it's not that cool or interesting. And then on Solar, once again, Solar has a way better kit for spamming your class ability, and you can use the regular Kefri's Horn exotic, and it works really well, but the only issue is it doesn't interact with Roaring Flames in any way, does not contribute to stacking Roaring Flames, and does not receive the buff of Roaring Flames, which I guess it's not technically a Solar ability, fair enough, but it would be pretty cool if it did work. So once again, it kind of feels pointless to go that route also, which throws you back towards Prismatic. And with Prismatic, the best way to get uptime on your Barricade is just to build up Transcendence and kind of do the classic loop of all the great melee builds of just using a Strand primary with Bravery to spread Unraveling to quickly build up your Transcendence. And with the fact that the Barricade itself doesn't do enough damage to even like one-hit champions, you're going to have to offset it with something else, either weapon damage or abilities, for example, Consecration. And once you have Transcendence going, you just kind of do the Consecration loop. And at that point, it feels like, why am I not just playing with Synthoceps? Is having my Barricade release Solar Energy worth losing like double damage to my Consecration? Probably not. And so while I think this build does have a place where it probably will be really strong, and I think that's going to be like in fire team settings, for solo it doesn't feel great. It feels like I'm just playing a worse version of Consecration. But let me know if you've made this build work down below. I still do like it, I just don't love it. And yeah, those are my 3 builds for the Specialist Armor set and the class ability stat. Definitely try out the Warlock and Hunter one, they are incredible. Like usual, thanks for watching, catch you guys next time.